Hi. We've always had a lot of athletes in volume on a lot of different teams, whether it's at Fallbrook High School or a different high school. We have a lot of athletes in here. And I want to start tonight off with some of the best advice, some of the best coaching advice that you can find. And it's from Paul. And you can find it if you have your Bibles, open up to 1 Corinthians chapter 9. 1 Corinthians chapter 9. This is in a letter that he writes to the church in Corinth. Corinth is a Greek city, and this is during a time that Greece was hosting every 4 years the Olympic Games. You've heard of them. Those are not a new idea. They've been around forever, okay? So the Olympic Games that are being hosted here, and he has some phenomenal advice that he's giving to the church in Corinth, and it's advice that they understand and they recognize in a lot of different ways. But here's what I want to start with tonight. Is a simple question. You ready for this? Do you like to win? Yeah. Winning's awesome. You know what's not awesome? Losing. Like, there's no situation where losing is like the better thing. If you have the choice of like, would you rather win or would you rather lose? It's like, yeah, I'd rather win. Do you want to score more points or fewer points? Well, in golf, I guess it's fewer points, right? You want that, which is another reason why golf is what it is. All right? But there's all these different things that kind of go into that. When I was in high school, so my family moved to Central America when I was starting 6th grade, all right? Up to that point, I grew up in Poway. Poway is like baseball central, okay? That's where all the baseball players are. So it was baseball, 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 baseball all the time. And then I moved to Central America where it's all baseball. What's that? Soccer, 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 soccer. That's all you play, all right? So I was like, well, I guess I'm a soccer player now. But I am fairly uncoordinated with my feet. But I have long arms and big hands, so I became a keeper. So I was a goalkeeper from 6th grade all the way through graduating my senior year. I got to play keeper, and it was phenomenal. It's great. I don't know if you know this, but like as a keeper, you're allowed to do like anything to the other team, and they'll call a foul against the other team. You can like punch them in midair, and it's fine. They're like, oh, he had the ball. You know, as long as I have the ball in this arm, I can pop you in the face with that one, and they're like, yeah, he's got the ball though. He's right, which is one of the reasons why I enjoyed it so much. Mostly because I didn't understand like most of the rules of soccer, but I was like, I'll stay in this box and I'll keep the ball out of the net, and it was awesome, easy enough. But I had a coach that would have that would do drills with me, and he would just do these drills while everybody else was learning like the different plays and passing and shooting and just, what soccer players do. I would be in the corner of the field against a wall, and he'd just be like kicking shots against me, and I'd have to get up and react and try to like save the different shots and things like that. And it hurt, and I would get bruised, and like it wasn't fun at all. And I remember one time in particular where he was getting frustrated with me because I just like wasn't getting up fast enough, and I wasn't reacting fast enough, and I wasn't doing well in this drill, and he was yelling at me. And I was like, Coach, because that's what I called him. I didn't know what his actual name was. Everybody just called him Coach. I said, I'm trying my best. And he looked me dead in the eye, and he was like, well, your best sucks. And from that day forward, he was my favorite coach I have ever had in my life. That was the day that I found out I respond better to that kind of coaching. That's the kind of coaching that I need, because I didn't go, you can't say that, all right? It didn't hurt my feelings, but it lit something inside of me where I was like, who do you think you are? My best sucks? You know what? You're right. My best does suck. And then I got in my own head, and then I was like, okay, what do I need to do to get better? And it became this mental shift for me of something needs to change. I've been doing things a certain way, and it's obviously not working because it's not good enough. So I need to switch that mentality. And Paul touches on this similarly here. Listen to what he says. He's talking about the need for self-discipline, and starting in verse 24 of chapter 9 in 1 Corinthians, he says, do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Now, this is the key distinction here. Notice that Paul didn't say run to finish the race. He didn't say run so that you can cross the finish line eventually. He didn't say run and just enjoy yourself as you're running. Just do it for fun. Anybody ever have one of those coaches where it's like, the most important thing is that you have fun out there? I hate those coaches. I hate those coaches. You know what's fun? Winning. You know what's not fun? Not winning. So the most important thing is winning. That's why we're here. Otherwise, what are you doing? He's not saying run to finish the race. He's not saying run and just make sure you have a good time out there. He's not saying run and at the end of it, you'll get a participation trophy. Paul is saying run in a manner that you are winning. Your goal and your focus should be running to win. The great theologian, Ricky Bobby, once said, if you ain't first, you're last, all right? And that's relevant. That's essentially what Paul is saying right here. So why does it feel like in so many areas in our lives, there are spaces where we're just failing to win? We're just not #winning. We're having a hard time, and maybe it's your prayer life. I'm not winning at my prayer life. Maybe it's in your relationships. I'm not winning at my relationships. Maybe it's in your friendships. I'm not winning in my friendships. Maybe it's in the time that you spend in the Word or in your devotionals. I'm not winning at those things. Maybe it's the New Year's resolution that you set for yourself for 2024. I'm not winning at those things. Why? Well, it's because you've been trying for too long. Paul's point is that we need to stop trying and start training. Not just stop trying and start doing, stop trying and start training. You see, when he writes this letter to the city in Corinth, this is a city that understood competition. So he uses competitive language and a competitive metaphor. He's saying run to win, all right? This city, Corinth in Greece, every 4 years, the Olympics come along. The nation of Greece hosts the Olympic Games, and you have people who are coming from all over the place. And Corinth is one of the key cities that hosts the Olympic Games. So they have all kinds of different competitions that are, and different athletes that are competing in the city of Corinth. And in fact, every 2 years, so if in case you don't want to wait long enough to get to the Olympics, every 2 years, they would hold something called the Isthmian Games. So you had the Olympic Games, and then between Olympic Games, you had the Isthmian Games, where you would come together and there were smaller competitions for wrestling and racing and fighting and all the different events that they had during that time. And so the Corinthians, the church in Corinth, they would have leaned in, my voice is still going, they would have leaned in when Paul was saying these words. Their ears would have perked up. They would have said, whoa, what? Because he's speaking to a city of athletes. He's speaking to a city of people who understand competition. He's speaking to a people of a very competitive nature and spirit when he says this. Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? They're like, yeah, tell us more. Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it, speaking to Christians, Christ followers, to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I do not fight like a boxer beating the air. No, I strike a blow to my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. He's speaking to athletes who compete in the Olympics. He's speaking to people who understand the value of intense training. Strict diets. They don't drink wine. They don't drink junk food. They get plenty of sleep every single night. You have runners in Corinth. They were known for running. When they train, they would get naked, butt naked, all right? Because they're like, I don't want any wind resistance, so no clothes. They would go zero clothes, and they run so that they're not just out in the breeze, okay? So that they are not hindered or held back by anything. There is no restriction to keep them from running. When they are wrestling, you would have these people who would practice wrestling. They would do it in all conditions. They would wait for the hottest day of the summer, and in the middle of the day, they would be out in the field, and they would be wrestling and sweating and just drenched in this and just hard conditions. And then alternatively, they would wait for the coldest days in winter, and they would go out in the same fields in the snow and the ice, and they would wrestle in the fields. And so all conditions, they're getting their bodies trained and acclimated for combat and to be able to wrestle in these conditions. And then they had some famous wrestlers who would go out and train with animals. So they would go out into the fields, and they would actually train. They would wrestle bulls, they would wrestle horses, and there are different accounts of wrestlers wrestling lions. Like they would take the lions, they would remove their teeth from the lions, and then they would send them in and they would wrestle lions just to test their strength and their ability against wild animals, who, by the way, are not going to be playing by the same rules. All right? That's what they understood of training. That's what it looked like for them. And Paul understands this. Excuse me. And we need to understand that nowhere in Scripture does it ever tell us to try. Nowhere are you going to find anywhere in the Bible where it suggests that you try something. God doesn't say, try to love others. God doesn't say, try to be holy. God doesn't say, hey, try your best to remain in the Spirit. He doesn't give us suggestions to consider. He gives us commands to obey. There's a difference there. He does not say, try to be godly. In 1 Timothy chapter 4, 7 through 8, it says, have nothing to do with godless myths and old wives' tales. Rather, train yourself to be godly. It doesn't say try to be godly. It says train to be godly. For physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things, holding promise for both the present life and the life to come. There's an author named Dallas Willard. He's known for his writings on spiritual formation, and he says this. He says, we are not trying to be different people, but we are training to be different people. If you want to be different, which is what holiness is all about. Holiness, a life of holiness, is about living a different life so that you might be set apart. There is a different standard. There is a different understanding. There is a different way of life. And Dallas is saying, we're not trying to be different people. We're training to be different people. The goal is the same. The goal is to be different, because that's what it means to be holy. It means to be different from the world, to be set apart from the world, because you are not of the world. You are not created for the world. You live in it, but you are not of it. You are of Him, the one who created you. So you have been set apart as His creation. So you are not merely trying to be holy. You are training to be holy. You are not trying to be godly. You are training to be godly. There's a difference between trying and training. Trying is an attempt to change with minimal effort. Trying is a cop-out, all right? Can we get all get on board with that? Trying is a cop-out in that it's a half-hearted attempt. And it gives us permission to fail, because we look at something, at a task or a goal or something to accomplish or succeed at, and we'll say, oh, I'll try it. But there's always the option to not succeed. There's always the option to lose. There's always the option to fail. That's kind of my safety net. I'll try it, but it's going to be an attempt with minimal commitment. Whereas training is wholehearted commitment to achieve a specific result. So if you have a goal in mind of something that you want to do, let's say you want to run a mile in 5 minutes, okay? Which for some of you are like, that's not that fast. And then others of us normal people, you're like, that will kill me. That will kill me, okay? I think at my best, I was like a 6 minute and 3 seconds guy, all right? And that was many years and many pounds ago, all right? So I don't even know where I would be now, but that would kill me trying to get there. But if you have that goal, there's two different mindsets of, oh, I'll try that. And then there's the mindset of, I will train for that. If you have never run a day in your life and you suddenly decide, I'm gonna run a marathon, what do you think is gonna set you up for success better, trying or training? Training is always going to yield a better result. Are you going to have a more realistic chance of accomplishing that, just finishing a marathon race by training for it or by trying? By training. There's a full-hearted commitment that is included in this. When you're trying, it's easy for us to give up if it's too hard or if it becomes inconvenient or if I simply don't feel like it. I'll try it, but then as soon as it's difficult for me, I'm out. I'll try the marathon, but as soon as I start cramping up and after like throwing up after the, first 7 times I've thrown up, I'm out. And people are like, you're a mile into it. Like that would be me. I'd be puking at the starting line. I'm like, I'm out. I'm done with this. That's what it would be. When you are trying, you give up if it's too hard, if it's inconvenient, and if you don't feel like it. But if you are training, you don't act according to your feelings. When you're training, you act according to your commitment. You have a commitment in mind. I'm not doing this because of how I feel about it. I'm doing this because of how I have committed to it. I have been committed to this thing and I will remain committed to it. Going back to 1 Corinthians 9, 26 through 27. Therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I do not fight like a boxer beating the air. No, I strike a blow to my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. Because when I'm trying to do something, when I am trying to have real, meaningful, lasting change in my life, I'm simply hoping to become something that I'm not. That's what trying is. But when I am training, I'm getting better at being what I already am. When we approach Christianity and our walk with Christ and what it means to live a faith-filled life, if you are trying, all that's going to get you is a feeble attempt at being something that you are clearly not. Whereas training, Paul says training is simply getting better at being what you know to already be. Who you are, not in the minds and sight of your peers, but in the minds and sight of your Creator. The Christian walk was never about trying. I tried church and it didn't work for me. I tried reading the Word, it didn't work I tried prayer and it's not my thing. I tried worship. I tried engaging, and it's not my deal. Why wasn't it your deal? I just wasn't comfortable with it. I tried doing a devotional, just couldn't do it. Why couldn't you do it? I didn't have the time. That's what trying is. Trying gives you an easy out. Failure is always an option if you're just trying at something. But the Christian walk was never meant to be tried. It was never about trying. It's about training to become who God has told you you are, who God says you are. So based on that knowledge and understanding and based on who you want to become, at the beginning of this series, we were talking about looking at this new year, the year 2024, not through the lens and perspective of what you want to do and accomplish, but yet through the perspective of who do you want to become? Who is the man that you want to become? Who is the woman that you want to become? That's the question that you are answering. And once you have that insight, once you have the answer to that question, the follow-up question is, how are you going to train to get there? How are you going to train to be the man that you want to become? How are you going to train to become the woman that you want to become? It's not asking, how are you going to try? How are you going to give it your best shot? How are you going to train to become who you want to be? Anybody in here do Jiu-jitsu? No one in here do jiu-jitsu? I feel way safer now. Oops, now I'm not safe anymore. Can I ask what belt you are? Gray, white? Oh, okay. All right. I was like, I didn't know there were sub-colors of the different colors. So correct me if I'm incorrect with this, but you have different belts that you get in jiu-jitsu, all right? You have you have white belt, you have blue, and then purple, and then brown, and then black. So there's five different colored belts that you get. And once you hit like black belt, that's, the government is contracting you to take out enemies abroad. And like, that's when like people don't mess with you, that black belt. All right. So you have those. There's white belt, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, black belt. Which of those is the hardest to get? Which of those is the hardest one to get? Black belt, you would consider, that takes the most amount of time to do. The hardest belt to get is white. Thanks for stealing my thunder. The hardest belt, but Desmond is absolutely correct. The hardest belt to get is white because most of us won't even get started. Most of us won't take the first step. There is no trying in jiu-jitsu. You don't get a belt for trying jiu-jitsu. You get belt, you get status for the progress that you get. You can only make progress in a discipline like jiu-jitsu through training. It has nothing to do with trying and everything to do with training. Because you don't find success when you hit some goal that you have in the future. You find success when you train on a daily basis, and so it is with your walk with God. God is not, when it comes to success in the relationship that we have with our Creator, it has nothing to do with the goals that you have in the future. You're not gonna get to a place where you're like, I win at Christianity. You don't get to the end of the game board of life of Christian. Have you guys played Life? That's not what it looks like, all right? You don't get to the end and you're like, I win at life. You never get to that place where you have accomplished the goal. You simply live your life in a way every single day, knowing that you will come face to face with Jesus one day. And he will say, well done, my good and faithful servant. Faithfulness comes through discipline. Faithfulness comes through training. Faithfulness does not come as a result of trying. You find success when you train and honor God today. Not hoping to one day honor him, honoring him day after day after day after day, so that one day you will stand before him. And he will say, well done, my good and faithful servant. Paul's words as a coach, he's saying, run the race to win. But understand what winning is. It's a daily sacrifice. It's daily faithfulness. The race to win is a life of faithfulness, and faithfulness happens every single day, but it comes through training. It will never come through trying. And God, I pray that we would be reminded of that truth. We thank you for the words from Paul, where he reminds us that maybe it's time for us to stop trying and start training. And God, for us, there's so many different things that we need to stop trying when it comes to our prayer life, when it comes through our faith, when it comes through diving into the word and seeking after you. We don't want to simply prayer breakdown. Remix? You know where I was going with that. I don't. Amen.